Guys, one more time, last time. Remember, everyone, it's okay to be SDA.
Why are so many young people leaving the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Boy, I tell you, what a question. You know, this is a challenging one. Well, actually, it's a common thing. It's like every single church I've been, where I've worked, even in our own local church. I don't know what happened to the youth, man. They're gone. But we need to figure out what's going on, though. Figure out a way to get the young people. There could be several reasons for this. I'm going to let the conversation go, but I would like to hear from you. Why are the young people leaving the church in droves? Why they're not in the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Why is that such a big problem today? So let's take a listen to this video. I'm going to put a link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. This is It Is Written, and with Brad Shaw and Professor Dr. Philip. All right, let's take a listen.
But churches have a real problem with young people. Let me tell you what it is. Some of these young people, they show up to church, they might have an earring in their ear. Or I've been to churches, Dr. Saman, and the boy was there and his hair was blue. Or the boy grew his hair long, or the girl shaved her head. I mean, Dr. Saman, what are we going to do when we have young people like this?
What these kids need the least is for them to be condemned. They need to be appreciated and cherished, because no matter how they look like, the investment of Jesus' life is in each one of them, and that gives them a lot of self-worth. When I look at people like this, I see Jesus invested in them. How can you give up on them? There was a young man like this who became like a hippie, body piercings. Part of his head was green, the other part of his hair was blue. A sight to behold.
Sure.
So he was gone out of the church for 3 years. There were all kinds of crazy things. And now the Lord convicted his heart to come back home, to come back to the fold. And this dear saint who was the greeter,
No.
she meant well. She's trying to be helpful.
You don't want to say.
And she said,
No way.
Sonny, she called him Sonny, where have you been all of this? And by the way, don't you know when you come to church, you should look presentable? Now, she meant well by that. I'm not trying to condemn her or judge her.
Ouch.
This young man left and never came back. I tried to reach him. This has been many years. He said, I'll never go back. He made a commitment never to come back, because how he was welcome when he came back.
Mercy. By the way, this is a common practice in the church today, and it needs to be addressed. Man, we got to be more patient with the young people. We got to be careful how we address their flaws. We got to care more about what really matters at the end of the day than what they're wearing and putting on. This is not to say you can't speak about this, but that should not be the main thing. This have been done in so many churches, in some cases, driven people out. It's been done in my church. All right. Guys, you got to stop doing that. You got to stop doing that. Let the word of God does the cutting and the changing and the saving of the heart. Be careful with your tongue. This is not to say you can't have standard. You should. But when a person is struggling spiritually, they're not where you are. They are young. They're making bad decision, right? What we say, they are young and dumb, right? That doesn't necessarily mean they don't want the Lord. And when we drive them out of these churches, we drive them out of our churches, they go out into the world. Satan takes advantage of them. And this is not something we should be doing. A lot of our young people are leaving the church because of how hostile and how cruel, how impatient, and how dogmatic some of our people have become. Is really a bad thing. I mean, listen, I got people on my channel right now who went after, you see this what I'm wearing? This is an Apple Watch. Yeah, they call that, take off that piece of jewelry from your arm. Listen, they call this a piece of jewelry, an Apple Watch that I use for exercise. I used to check out time. Some of them in the channel, in the comment box, they go after me over this. And I say, you see, this is the kind of person that will drive people out of the church. Like, you are really out of your mind. You call this a piece of jewelry and you're trying to preach to me about Apple Watches. the gospel of Apple. What? Anyway, I smile because I understand, but a young person you do that to, you will drive them away from Jesus.
So we have to be very Christlike and look at each person like that and value them as we would value Jesus. And as much as we do it to him, we do it to Jesus.
What do you think Jesus would do if he was in the synagogue? Okay, not the synagogue, in the church, and a girl came in with a ring in her nose and a boy came in with a chain around his neck and long hair. I'm just picking on stereotypical
Yes.
things. What would Jesus do
Wow.
if a bunch of kids like that showed up at his church?
We know what he would do, don't we? I mean, after all, and he was condemned for it, by the way.
Yep.
He was around harlots, prostitutes, tax collectors.
People with real issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have a guy with an earring and have a tax collector, just
Holy.
cheating from people big time. I mean, we should look at things in certain perspectives.
Correct.
And to me, to have somebody looking a certain way could be easier than dealing with some of the people Jesus dealt with. We just have to look at the potential and ask the question, how would these people be when they really turn to Jesus?
Isn't it important that we see things in perspective? Some of the things that some of the saints give young people a hard time about are pretty small. I'm not excusing silly behavior or unwise behavior.
True.
But in the grand scheme of things, we can get pretty well exercised over things that in the big picture just don't mean a lot.
That's right. See, I don't like some of that myself.
I recall coming to church, I was holding meetings in British Columbia, and there was a young fellow whose name I don't remember. He was 22 or something, looked about 22 years of age. And we'd come to church and his hair is blue, bright blue. And a couple of dear old ladies walked in behind me and I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And they said, hello, Rodney, or whatever his name was. Blue hair. What do you think, Edith? Oh, I like it. Although Edith said, but Rodney, I did like the green. I like the green very much. They just loved him anyway.
Yes.
He never left the church, finally figured out what he wanted to do with his hair.
Yes. If we see all of that from Christ's perspective, you see, we focus on what we think is important. If I focus on the color of the hair and all the body piercing, then that's what's important to me. That's a priority. But isn't it a greater priority?
It's a greater priority.
It goes beyond that to the salvation of this precious person
Correct.
in whom Jesus invested his life-giving blood. If you focus on that, then this doesn't become a big issue. And to me, the young people or anybody should never think of us as that's our focus. That's what we're in love with. They should think about us being in love with Jesus. And then, to me, the greatest gift to give them is to love them unconditionally in Jesus. And what's supposed to fall off will fall off. But even if it takes them longer, what choice do we have but love them unconditionally? Jesus would do that.
Correct.
Remember, Jesus loved people to the end. He even loved Judas to the end.
That's right, he did.
And he loved the people who said, crucify him, to the very end when he was agonizing on the cross. And he prayed for them. And believe it or not, after the Pentecost, at the Spirit-anointed preaching of Peter, many of these people who cried, crucify, were converted to Jesus Christ. So that gives me hope. I mean, I don't think these people talking about are as bad as ones who shout, crucify him, and relish every bit of pain on his face.
Just very quickly, before we go to a break, we have just a few moments. Give me some practical, rapid fire, bullet point ways to get your young people involved in church in a meaningful way.
I'm so glad you love to minister to young people. At my age, and you're much younger than me,
Oh, much.
we're interested in young people because young people are the future of our church and God's work. They're going to finish the work. Quickly, few things I mentioned to you. The first thing is love them genuinely in Jesus. Let them feel that. Let them know that. Let them know, for example, as a teacher, Christian education is more than giving a good lecture.
Right.
It's the investment of ourselves in our young people. It's not just the cognitive, it's the affective. It's not just the meeting of mind with mind, but heart with heart. because life that begins. They have to know that.
That's right.
And that's why, in my teaching, I want to follow Christ's example of teaching, and that's I am accessible. I'm an old-fashioned professor. I make house calls. Does that sound old-fashioned? That means I mingle with students as one designed their good. And use Christ's approach. After that, then you discover what their talents is, what their gifts are. You lead them into witnessing. Witnessing, if they really experience leading their classmates to Christ, that's very effective. Provide opportunities to do mission work. When we send our kids overseas, they come back transformed. Because we live in a culture where everything is so provided, everything is so easy. Challenge them, give them a cause bigger than themselves, send them to Colombia, send them to Honduras, and they come back appreciating Jesus, appreciating the blessings, and provide opportunities. And let's not focus on entertainment, okay? Youth ministry used to be defined as entertainment. They have enough entertainment in the world.
That's right.
Training. An army of youth well-trained will finish the work.
Yes, it will.
Powerful. Dr. Philip Saman, that was great. That was a blessing to my heart because I have a soft spot for the youth, man. I love what he says, right? You got to love them. We got to love them in the Lord, right? And you also got to give them a sense of purpose, right? Sense of purpose. Identify their gifts, put them to work, challenge them, and invest in them. This is amazing stuff. And I thought, again, going back to what the Bible says in First Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. While man looks on the outward appearance, right? God looks at the heart. We have to see the heart. We can't get caught up in the outward appearance of individuals. Although it does tell you what's in the heart. It does expose the condition of the heart, but it doesn't tell the entire story. So I tell you what, I've been in a church. I was invited as a guest speaker just about a month ago. And my wife and I, we went to visit this church in New Jersey. Boy, oh boy, I got to testify. That was a different place for me. I had never seen anything like that, at least not in a long time. The young people, they had their own church. So they had the morning service for the adults. And there were a few youth among the crowd, of course. But then about, I think 1 o'clock or something, they had the youth church. Bruh. Full of life, excited, loving the Lord. They come with different clothes, outfits. Some dressed right, some dressed wrong. Some the girls were singing, the boys were preaching. They love the Lord, brother. When I went there, I was like, yo, these young people love the Lord. I had to call the minister. I said, man, how in the world did you get these young people to love the? He said, we just make room for them. The same thing. He says, I invest in them. Let them work. They want to work. They want their own church because the earlier church, the adult church, is like a French-speaking, Creole, and they had the English version for the youth. So the elders of the church were just surrounding the place. They were keeping the youth safe. So some were at the door, some were in the back, some were watching the young people, but they did not touch anything. They let the young people do everything. Okay, so as long as they stayed within the confinement of what they've already ordered and agreed upon, the youth were free to do what they wanted to do, and they were preaching the word, they were doing their thing, singing the songs that they love to sing, and the girls were pretty, the young men were handsome, and listen, man, they were having an experience with the Lord. And I was watching, I'm like, yo, that's just so weird. This is so odd. You can't find too many of this today. Listen, I'm gonna put a clip in this video when I do the edit.
Say we are happy to be in the house of the Lord. If you're happy to be in the house of the Lord, say amen.
Light up a candle and put it under a table. Chapter 2, verse 16. The Pharisees were complaining, but they were telling the truth.
It's like, this is what it should look like, at least. I'm not saying you should separate, the church, adult. I'm not saying you have to do that. But what I'm talking about is the significance that they provided for the youth and how these young people, they were looking toward, they wanted to have church. They were ready for church. They were ready to come down and meet their friends and sing, and they were ready for ministry. They're full of life and energy. You can't sit young people down and let the old folks run everything. And you think that's having church. No. And they were teaching, preaching the messages that we know. They were hearing the gospel. They were hearing three angels' messages. They sat down and they loved it. Why is this happening? Well, they were loved. They weren't cast aside and judged because of the way they dressed. They were welcome in the church and felt significant. Their talents were put to use. They had a sense of purpose. They felt a level of significance, and they went to work for the Lord. Beautiful stuff. This is how it's done. This is how it's done. And you do that, and you let God give the increase, man. You sow, man. You sow. And God will give the increase. He will work in their hearts and save our children. We need to be praying for our young people, man. Our young people is facing a battle today. They don't know what to do with themselves. They are being challenged all the time, whether it is a good thing to be a Seventh-day Adventist. I went to my daughter's graduation over the weekend. And one of the things that Dave said was, at the end of the graduation, one of the young men came and received his diploma. And he turned around the camera and says, man, it's okay to be SDA.
Thank you so much, Mr. James. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wait, I want to do one last time for It's Okay to be SDA really quick. Okay. Guys, one more time. Last time. Remember, everyone, it's okay to be SDA.
And I thought about that. I was like, yeah, it is okay to be SDA, man. You know why? Because they're challenged all the time. Being Seventh-day Adventist as if it's a bad thing. They're saying, no, it's okay to be SDA. But when they come into church, my dear friends, you got to make them feel being a Seventh-day Adventist is not a bad thing. And it is not a bad thing. But if they don't feel significance, they don't feel loved, they feel judged, they feel like they don't matter, they feel invisible in the church. That's not good. We lose them that way. Friends, a lot more could be said. Pray for our young people. Love them. Care for them. Cherish them. Those that are under your roof, love them too. They need your love. Whew. I'm going to put a link in the description below. Make sure you check it out. Support the channel as well. And I'm also going to leave the Patreon where you can support us, okay? So until next time, remember, like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Have a good one. Bye.